Let's talk about plastic versus natural beauty. I recently saw Erin Moriarty and I could not believe how much she has changed her look, even though she was already extremely beautiful. Have you ever watched this show called Selling Sunset? I'm kind of addicted to this show, and if you ever actually dive into the before and afters of all these girls before surgery, it's insane how different they look. Emma, for example, I thought she was beautiful already, but for some reason this girl got plastic surgery to look even more dollish. And of course, I understand that movie stars get plastic surgery. I mean, Scarlett Jo had maybe like a minor nose job. She looks relatively the same. Well, how does this affect you? Well, today I want to look at plastic surgery from a different lens. I want to look at it from the lens of how can we as men find beautiful women who are naturally beautiful inside and out, and how to avoid the plastics. Now, some of you might be saying, wait a minute, Giovanni, I like the plastics, they're hot. If that's true, that's fine. But let's at least break down the illusion of the plastics. I'm going to show you the secrets, the tips, all the things that they do to look beautiful, and hopefully next time you'll be less intimidated. And for those of you that are trying to start a family or find a serious girlfriend, hopefully your kids won't look like this because you found the wrong girl. I will show you the truth behind the mirror, so you don't feel so anxious the next time you see that perfect figure or that perfect face, so you can actually attract them and date them. You might be surprised, but the way you interact with plastics is actually quite similar to the way you interact with regular girls once you know the fundamentals, and I'll show you what that means. And if you can date both, girls who are really done up versus girls who are naturally beautiful, I think you'll start to realize, I hope you agree, this is my hypothesis, that the girls that lean towards natural beauty are a little bit easier to date and a little bit more compatible. There are many different types of degrees of surgery, from all naturally beautiful to minor improvements, right? I think Madison Beer, when I watched her in all her interviews, she admitted to having lip injections, and then she also admitted that she dissolved them. I actually think most of her face is naturally beautiful. Angelina Jolie, as everyone knows, has had minor surgery, but her surgery was really well done, and they were minor to the point where it looked really good. And then you have people like Megan Fox, who looks like a completely different person before and after. And then you have people that go a little bit overboard. As technology improves, people's makeup skills improve. You have lashes, extensions, facial procedures, lasers, ways to change your physical appearance with less risk. So there are a lot of things that are available to us now that were not available just 20 years ago. And as you can see here, the beauties in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, women are more beautiful now than ever before, right? All these surgeries are now available that weren't safe before or just weren't available before. But with that access, a lot of women also go overboard. Just using makeup alone, you can have a completely different before and after picture. And whether you're born beautiful or you're not as genetically gifted, if a woman can get to a certain point, that top 20%, where the symmetry matches in the face, what happens is when a guy looks at her, he's automatically going to feel this level of interest. And sometimes even nervousness. Once you set eyes on a certain symmetry of the face and the body, the guy just becomes drawn to you. On your dating journey, you're going to meet different levels of beauty. And if you don't prepare for this, what you're going to feel is a little flustered and anxious, and you're going to lose out on these girls when they're standing right in front of you and you don't know what to do. So I will show you how to deal with that. But before I do, I want to tell you a little bit about my story. So I was in the States for a long time, but one day I took a trip to Brazil and I stayed there for about a month. And what I found in Brazil was this totally different level of natural beauty that I've never seen before. Not only were the women friendly and nice and compared to the States, but they were naturally beautiful. And they tend to give you a shot, and they see you as more of a holistic vibe. Like, does this person vibe with me? Rather than the States, which is like, does he have a good paper resume? Is he good enough to hang out with me? In the States, usually cold approaching isn't bad, but I was at the Playboy Mansion and I noticed that because of the ratio difference, it was really good. All the girls were friendly. At the same time, you definitely see a lot of work done with the girls there. These three are fine, but definitely like, yes, upscale events in the States, a lot of work done. Brazil, some, but less so. Most women are somewhere in between, right? They've maybe had some work done, but they're not completely overboard. So my goal is to help my clients achieve dating freedom or social freedom. And in the dating sphere, really the ability to date the type of girls you want by having a predictable process is my goal for you. If you want some help with that, check out the links in the description. Now, as you go on this journey, you're going to meet girls at nightclubs, you're going to meet girls at social events, you're going to meet girls at your work, you're going to meet girls, perhaps if you're on the more ambitious path, girls that are at more exclusive parties or perhaps modeling events, or if you have access to a certain type of group of girls, you're going to meet these type of girls. And the first type is the minor revision girl. Okay, these are girls who already naturally look good, but they've had minor changes to their face and it's not that obvious. I think the best celebrity example of this is Blake Lively, right? Like, she barely had like a minor nose job, and I can understand it because she's in the film industry and she's had that done and it's not that different. She still looks good, and then that's it. Now with these type of girls, usually what I would recommend is I would imagine them without makeup on. And the reason I do that is because I had a few girlfriends like this, where they're naturally beautiful. And they would always say to me, do you still like me now? Especially in the morning. I remember one time I told this girl, I said, baby, you look like a frog. And then she hit me on the arm really hard. And I said, no, but you're my frog. I didn't say it maliciously. She was my girlfriend at that point. But it was just to let her know that, look, even though you don't look like you do with makeup on, I still love you. And as you get out there and you see these naturally beautiful women with minor revisions, what you want to do from a mental perspective, a game perspective, is just to appreciate her beauty, but also look beyond that. Okay, imagine her without makeup on. Imagine her as just a regular friend hanging out. Sometimes I even imagine her if she was in a different body, a different face, completely different vehicle. And I would imagine if she was in that other person, would I still see her for her? Would I still be able to see her energy and her spirit? And with that mentality, you don't get so stuck on the symmetry of the face or wanting to see her naked or all these like weird thoughts that prevent you from getting girls like this. Recently in Asia, and especially like Korea and even the surgical techniques in Taiwan that I've seen, you occasionally run into girls what we call the super plastic. This girl right here, I think her name is Jade. I saw her on an interview once and she's very articulate, very smart, and she's obviously had a lot of work done from, you know, let's call level 1 phase 1 cell to phase 2 to phase 3 total hottie, right? And there are a lot of girls like this, particularly where the surgical skills are very, very good, and it's very hard to tell. So these type of girls, not to stereotype or anything, and not to say that Jade is like this, I actually think she might be a cool person. I don't know her personally, but what I tend to do to get these girls, there was a period in my life where I was obsessed with these girls. They look so hot on my Instagram feed, and I wanted to meet them in person. It's just appreciate the work that she's done. It took a lot of planning, a lot of searching for doctors, a lot of taking risks with surgery to get to the point where she can mold herself into the image that she wanted you to see. So I appreciate the effort, and I see it as her working on herself. Same way someone might work on a business. And then when I talk to her, I appreciate her beauty now, but I also imagine her as before. Like, this is the person before. And I try to see that real person, okay? And I try to combine the two somewhere in between. And I talk to her as such. Now, sometimes when you're staring at her body or her face and it's perfectly done, it's hard to see that. But if you train your eye to just see, oh, there's a breast augmentation, there's kind of the collagen fillers here, then it just becomes a little bit more technical. It's kind of like if you're Kobe Bryant and you can see the dribble, the layup, all the intricacies leading up to the scoring the basket. You can also see all the little details that created that silhouette or that look or that face. And it becomes more technical, and you kind of see it as for what it is rather than the illusion of it. So with the super plastics, I tend to just show respect. Like, I don't mention that she had plastic surgery. I just, appreciate them. At some point, most of these people that I know, they're okay talking about their plastic surgery, but maybe not on the first date. And actually, sometimes they love talking about it. They're like, oh yeah, I just found this doctor, I did this, and I love shaping my look. Okay, those are the type of girls you want to talk to because they see it as a game. You don't want to talk to the ones that are super sensitive or super insecure. They're just like, they don't want to talk about it, even though it's very obvious they've had work done. And then you have the idol, okay? I have a lot of Korean idols here. These are members of Blackpink. I think this is Jennie, this is Lisa. And when I first moved to LA, and if you get into the high-end parties in like Singapore, Taiwan, and South Korea, you start seeing these type of girls where it's like they've had work done, but they've had work done because they're in the industry. So maybe she's a YouTuber or she is in a band. Like, their occupation requires them to do this. And when I first got to LA, I started meeting a lot of these girls who are in the industry, and I was starstruck. I'm like, oh my god, I've seen her on TV. The starstruck sensation is kind of like you're just like automatically a fan because you feel like you've known them, you've watched them for so long, so many years. But then after a while, I realized if you're always starstruck, you can't have a real connection with that person. So after about like 6 months in LA, I started to normalize these interactions. And then what happens is you start treating them like a normal person. It's actually quite hard to do because you feel like you've known them for a long time, but they've only met you the first time. So learning how to express yourself authentically is really hard to do. One thing I do is just, again, completely expressing yourself honestly. It's just, hey, I know that it's your first time meeting me, but I've seen you doing these things, and I just wanted, to say I'm a little starstruck, but I'm sure there's a real person there too, and I appreciate you talking to me. And I know this is hard to do, and it takes a little bit of practice, but I would say 3 to 6 months of consistent exposure to this, and then the kind of celebrity effect starts to wear off, and you can start treating them like kind of like real people at a party. Okay, the supernatural. So a lot of the Victoria's Secret girls, especially Adriana Lima, fits into this category. They're very, very rare. They're like rare gemstones. They're natural beauties who just were naturally beautiful, haven't had any work done, and they're kind of born like that. I don't think Adriana Lima has had any major surgery. She may have had like a few fillers here and there, but she's definitely one of these supernaturals. They're very hard to find, and when you do find them, a lot of guys are after them. The only thing I can say here is, again, treat her like a real person. Don't get starstruck. It takes a little bit bit of experience to do so. But also, you want to find a girl who's a supernatural who's not in modeling, because if they're in modeling, your competition goes up exponentially, and she's gonna get hit up by guys exponentially compared to if she had a regular job or she worked in a different industry. The next tip I have for you, if you're going after beauty, is really just to be empathetic, right? Beauty is temporary, ugly is forever. Everybody ages, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, I'm empathetic to the fact that it's hard to maintain. And one sentence that I always use especially when I was in LA, was I would say, look, there are a lot of beautiful girls in LA, obviously, you're one of them. What's one thing that you really feel like you really are proud of, or one accomplishment in the last year? And it can't be about how you look, okay? And then just pause. And you'll be surprised at the type of answers you get from women. Whatever she says, if you actually listen really well and actually show appreciation, I admire the fact that, despite your disadvantaged looks, that you still focused on getting your master's degree or whatnot. And they will appreciate you so much for seeing that. I'm also sympathetic to the fact that ongoing, plastic surgery, it's not just one time. Like, maintaining it takes a lot of time, a lot of money. It's not easy to do. And I think where women kind of veer off the deep end is when the ROI is just not worth it. You can do minor surgery, get the job you want, or get that modeling gig, and it's fine. But if you overwork on yourself and you try to maintain your youth too long, the surgery starts getting distorted and it starts looking worse. And that's where the ROI is just not worth it. And unfortunately, some women and men get so obsessed with that it goes off the cliff and the ROI gets distorted. So you remember natural, minor improvement, significant improvement, and then overkill, right? Let's look at this scale here. So super plastics. Trigger warning, this is just a generalization, but in my 15 years of in-field experience, the super plastics, generally there's a reason they went that hard, and it usually comes from some incident where they got bullied or they have somewhat low self-esteem during a period of time. Now, there are examples of people that just wanted to kind of control their look. They felt like kind of like their avatar, and they could build up their look. They tend to prioritize looks way over to the point where their priorities are a little bit misaligned. So in the same concept, right, it's like the girl she knows that guys want her looks, and so she's testing you, she's kind of observing you, and there's this tipping point where she's like, oh, he actually likes me for me, or oh, he doesn't care about these things. And you have to make her believe that that's the case. And I know sometimes that's not the case, but you just gotta try to see through to the real person. And once you hit that tipping point over time, sometimes it takes a few minutes, sometimes it takes a few hours, sometimes it takes a few weeks. But once you hit that tipping point, she starts trusting you, then she lets you in. Then that's when you really get into the power of your influence over a person, because she believes that, yes, she's good looking, but that's not the most important thing for you. So for girls who are just minor to kind of, major improvements, most of them did it because they're in a job or entertainment. They did it because they're modeling. Usually they're pretty smart girls. They're actually quite business oriented. They see the surgery as a risk, but also a reward. It's almost like an investment. Sometimes they're a little bit insecure, especially models, because they get so critiqued on everything. Their nose, one hair is off. So they hear that all the time over a couple of years, and models start feeling really insecure about that stuff. I heard in Korea, right, all the rich girls, by the time they turn 18, their parents give them a gift like it's a plastic surgery gift. So it's pretty insane how crazy that is. And I think there's a lot of social pressure, especially in certain echelons of society. And just, be empathetic to that. They're going through some stuff, and sometimes because they're so focused on their look, sometimes their priorities are a little bit messed up. And so I find that to seduce them, sometimes you're a person that kind of brings them back to earth. Realign their priorities, where it's like, hey man, these things aren't that important. We should be hanging out with your parents or your friends, and just realigning that priority for them. And they see that you're that type of dude, that's when they start falling for you. I have had girlfriends who are naturally beautiful. I've been fortunate enough to meet supernaturals, not to the supermodel level like Adriana Lima, but I've had a few girlfriends like that, and I really am thankful. But those with minor revisions, they're just genetically already pretty good, and they usually do it because they have an ROI there, a return on investment in terms of their career, or they're in an industry where that could help, and they're very business oriented. They'll measure the ROI. They'll be like, how dangerous is the surgery? What's the risk and reward? And then usually for them, it's minimal maintenance, right? They get it done, they're good, they maintain it. As they age, they don't think about it too much, right? They're doing it because they're on the peak of their career, and it's going to help them, and maybe it'll help them find a better quality boyfriend or husband. And then after that, they maintain it, but they're not overly obsessed with it. These are the type of girls that I find to be the most normal. Again, these are generalizations. You can have a girl who's overkill, who's super nice, and you can have a girl who's totally natural, who's completely misaligned priorities and cares about superficial stuff, right? I'm not saying that everyone's like that, but generally generally in my experience, they tend to fall into these categories. So some lessons for you. Okay, if you're in the States, right? Like the more overkill, generally speaking, the more obvious they've had work done, the more you must break the paper resume wall. In her mind, she's invested in all this, right? So she's like, I've invested in myself. What about you? What do you bring to the table? And in the States especially, it's like they have this wall. It's like, are you good enough? They're gonna judge you on a lot of superficial stuff. Unfortunately, you can break through that with strong personality, but it's just a little harder to do. And in LA, there's a certain type of game you can run to do that, even if you're not super rich or super good looking, but it takes time to do. Usually, as you get out of the country, these things fall off. What you'll find is girls who are naturally beautiful or maybe even had a little work done outside of the States, they're usually DTE, down to earth. They'll assess you holistically. They'll talk to you like a real person. They won't judge you right away. They'll just see, hey, is this a good match? And they'll kind of get to know you for you. No matter what though, any girl who's had some work done, okay, or who's put in a significant amount of effort to improving her look, she's gonna have an MPR, a minimum physical requirement. Why? Because anybody that invests that much time into how they look is going to expect at least a little bit of that in their partner. So in their minds, they have the minimum they're willing to accept. You don't have to be the best looking guy, but you have to be a guy that brings at least a little bit of value and at least some level of style to complement her beauty. So that's why I created Seduce with Style, right? Because I went through this process of being an ugly duckling to modeling in Fashion Week, and I experienced the difference. So if you need to improve your style, you can check out Seduce with Style. As you can see here, my style is not super crazy either. It's just very, very simple and very clean. And I was able to meet a lot of really cool girls along my journey. There are 8 style attraction triggers that I discovered that every guy can use. And if you want to download what those are, go to that link right here and you can get it for free. And you can watch the free training and the course is optional, but you can download the 8 style attraction triggers for free. No matter plastic or not, game for authenticity. If you can break that wall, none of this matters, okay? And the girl will fall for you. Maybe not every girl, but consistently enough where if you talk to 10 girls, you're gonna get 2 to 3 girls that you find really attractive, at least. If you want to get this handled, you can go to High Integrity Skills /33 for the first day formula. You can download High Integrity Skills /Style 4 for the 8 style attraction triggers. And if you're an Asian guy, I teach you how to do this with special calibrations at datingwithoutborders.net. Beauty is important to the guy, but we don't have to obsess over it. If you can see the real beauty, this game is gonna be so much more fun for you. You can appreciate the technicals, the surgery, the hair, the makeup, the effort she puts in to look beautiful for you, and you can appreciate that illusion without getting lost in it, without becoming super simp, super putting her on a pedestal, or super nervous or anxious. You see the game for what it is, how it's being played, and you respect it, and you move within that frame, and you get what you want, and hopefully create win-win situations between you and the girls that you meet. Cool, guys. I don't know if I want to do another plastic surgery breakdown, but if you're interested, if I get enough views for this video, I may do another one. I'll see you in the next one.